Welcome to the D2 Baseball Podcast, your top source for all things D2 Baseball. Before we jump into today's episode, I've got some exciting news. Are you looking to reach a passionate, engaged audience? We're now offering ad spots on our podcast. By advertising with us, you'll connect with thousands of dedicated D2 Baseball fans, including players, coaches, and avid supporters. Here's why you should consider partnering with us. Targeted reach. Engage a specific audience that loves D2 baseball. High engagement. Our listeners are loyal and tuned in regularly. Affordable rates. Competitive pricing for all budgets. Flexible formats. Choose from pre-roll, mid-roll, or post-roll ads. Interested? Email us at diviibaseball@gmail.com to learn more and secure your spot. Let's hit it out of the park together. Thanks for considering this opportunity. Now, let's get to today's episode of the D2 Baseball Podcast.
Welcome into another Division II Baseball Podcast. We're joined alongside Rick Odette, new head coach at Florida Southern, announced this summer, came over from St. Leo's, been coaching in Division II baseball for quite some time, has had a lot of success, and now heading into his first season with Florida Southern. We want to welcome Rick Odette to the program, Coach. Thanks for taking the time and tell us a little bit about this transition. You moved from one team in the Sunshine State Conference to another. Tell us about your experience so far as you get ready for the 2025 season.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate you and all your coverage. I know we've talked over the last couple of years especially, but I thank you guys for putting D2 in the spotlight for sure. But yeah, it was one of those situations that, to be honest with you, I was extremely happy at St. Leo. It was a great place for myself and my family, especially after leaving St. Joe and the situation that the school was in there, and had an opportunity to come here to Florida Southern. And it's just, I think, this is going to be my 25th season as a Division II guy. And, I think anytime that you talk about some of the best programs in the country in Division II, Florida Southern is always in that conversation and always has been, with its storied history and 9 national championships and so on. So when this became something that might be real, that really made some sense, and it was fairly local. I didn't have to move. My daughter can stay in high school, and our family didn't have to leave. It started making more sense, and just the way they resource it, the way the expectation is here, and just what they want this program to be, it was something that I couldn't turn down. And again, St. Leo was a wonderful place, and we enjoyed it immensely. But this is a place that I think everybody at this level wants to be at.
And Coach, what I find really interesting is, you talked about the program where, you want it where it wants to be. We know of the rich history of Florida Southern, 9 national titles, tied for the most in Division II history. When you took this job at Florida Southern into now, what have you learned about the program's history and tradition at Florida Southern?
Well, to be honest with you, until you dig into it, it doesn't even do it justice. I think, now we've had 191 pro players here out of Florida Southern, 14 big leaguers. And then I think the biggest part is you get into every conversation, no matter who it is. If it's a transfer, a high school kid, we don't have to start from scratch and tell them who we are. It has the base. And, one thing I've learned is our alumni base, our donors, they are so connected and have been so great for us. It's been a huge resource for us. I think anything is getting people you can trust, or at least getting names or information from people that can allow you to get the best players and people here. And that's been a really, really good resource for us.
When you talk about the process, you say you didn't have to move at all. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, my son's a sophomore at Lake Sumter Community College. He is a right-handed pitcher for those guys. And my daughter's a sophomore in high school. My wife's a teacher in Wesley Chapel, where we live at. And it's about a 40-minute trip, so it's not terrible. The biggest thing is we had to move our kids 8 years ago, and transition's always tough. And with that being said, this is something that we can stay here at least through she, until she gets out of high school. That we didn't have to change her situation. And of course, professionally, it's something that you're super excited about. But more importantly, is making sure your family is secure. And they're okay with the move too, because it does change, the dynamic of your house, and travel becomes different to where, it's a 10-minute trip, it's a 45-minute trip now. So it's a little bit different from that end of it. But really, other than that, it's very, very similar. Obviously, same league. The administration here has been fantastic. The support system, our AD and the associate ADs and assistants have been unbelievably good. And have a number of people that I was familiar with when I was at St. Leo, and become great resources here also.
And Coach, talking about the incredible success of Florida Southern, let's talk a little bit about your success. With your tenure as a Division II coach, nearly 700 wins. What kind of principles or philosophies have guided your coaching throughout your career, and what has developed over time as your coaching career continues?
Well, I think as you know, and everybody is figuring out, the game's changing, right? So you have to be able to adjust to what's happening, of the way recruiting's going, and so many different things. You used to get a player that was like a lock to be there for 3 to 4 years pending the draft, and now it's you're trying to build the culture, but you're doing it in a shorter window, in a smaller window. The one thing that doesn't change are the people, right? No matter what, I think everybody. I think this is a big piece. Is we've always considered ourselves, to a higher standard, put ourselves to a higher standard, and the way to do that is through discipline and obviously structure. And people say, well, the kids don't like that anymore. No, I don't really agree with that. I think the adults don't like it anymore. Our guys have worked their butt off, and they enjoy the structure piece. And again, we've changed a lot of things. How you go about a player, how do you communicate with that guy now? There's so much more visual learning. So we've made a ton of adjustments on just how, especially myself, how I've coached from year one to now. But I think it's just like anything. You either adapt or it's going to pass you up. And so to be honest, I've probably become a better coach because of it. Because you have to think outside the box, and you have to look at it differently than you once did. But I think the standards are still the standards. How we act, how we treat people, how we go about our business. We will always work blue collar. We'll always be blue collar. That's who we are. And that's who I am. So it's not something that will change within our program. But with that being said, you have to change of how you address the players and how you go about your business.
And to go into this program, familiar league, like you mentioned, with the Sunshine State Conference, and it's regarded as one of the best leagues in the country year in and year out. How do you maintain or try to get back to a level of success toward the top of this league when it is so competitive? Tell the listeners who aren't familiar with the league just how competitive it is every weekend and how you have to maintain excellence every weekend, like you talked about, because it's one of the best leagues in the country.
Yes, there's not a down weekend, and that's the thing is sometimes you go in and you're like, okay, if we play well, we should sweep them. If we play well, obviously there's a lot to that. Here, you're going to have to play well. You're going to have to get some luck. You're going to have to stay healthy. You're going to have to do a lot of things to walk out of there with a sweep, with a series win, and sometimes not to get swept. If you're not ready and you're not prepared, you're in trouble. And our biggest thing is we can't worry about the result. We have to worry about how we work and how we go about our business. And of course, it's coach talk, right? Like pitch to pitch and play pitch to pitch and work pitch to pitch and day to day and so on. That's the truth, though. I mean, if you're looking to what's next, you're going to walk out of there off that field and you're going to be disappointed. And that's the thing is every team in our league from top to bottom, they could be in first place or last place. If you're not ready, you're going to get beat. And if you don't get beat, you get lucky. So our job is just to make sure that they maintain the same type of mentality, no matter if you're playing a number one team in the country or the team that's at the bottom of the league.
And Coach, going back to your previous point of, talking about, the new age of, developing players, recruiting players, in your kind of disciplined framework, how do you balance structure and freedom to ensure players develop within that framework?
That's a good question. I think, it's much more individualized from an approach and really a coaching philosophy. Like, they still want to be coached. I mean, let's be honest, there's more resourcing for them now than ever. So we've got to get them to buy in. Okay, so once we say something, it's not it used to be, this is how we do it, and this is how you're going to do it. Now we've got to give the information of how we got to that point. And why it's best for you, but it might not be best for your teammate. And a lot of that becomes, we've got TrackMan and things like that here. Metrics do help it because I think everyone's a visual learner now, or a lot of people are. But I also think, the video piece works. But just getting them to see that you're willing to work to get them better, I think that starts the buy-in. If you're willing to show that you're going to do everything in your power to maximize their ability, I think it first starts there. And that's one fortunate thing we've been here right away is, okay, we're not going to have a one size fit all. We're going to have our base. We're going to have our structure piece of what our foundation is going to look like. And then we're going to make it the best you. And once we do that, I think the buy-in becomes a lot easier at that point, because if you just walk in like, hey man, I'll be honest with you, 10, 15 years ago, you walk in, this is the way we're going to do it. If you don't like it, it's not the right place. Well, we're still going to stay to our absolutes and we're still going to stay to what we believe in, but we're going to have to adjust on some of the ways we coach. And I think we've done a good job of transitioning with that too.
And with the transition, which has kind of been the whole basis of at least this podcast series, talking about coaching changes and talking with coaches across the country, taking new roles and leading new programs. One thing we always like to ask is, what do you feel like year one is going to be in store for this program? Do you have some immediate goals for what you want this team to look like and what you want this program to look like on the field in your first year? I'm sure, like you've mentioned, a very exciting opportunity to take over a program with this type of history, tradition, and legacy.
Well, I think the biggest thing for us is the base is set. We feel like we've got the right base. Now it's going to be, coming back, make sure we're healthy, we're ready to go, because we do have such a short window. We've got about 3 weeks to our first game once our first practice starts. So making sure that they're ready to go. We open up with West Florida, so it's not going to be an easy start. And then Georgia Southwestern right behind it. So it's not one of those situations where you're going to be able to feel your way out. We're going to have to be ready when we show up. The expectation for the season, though, in general, I mean, to say we don't want to be in a national conversation is crazy, right? And for us, we do have a lot of moving parts. We've brought in a lot of transfer guys that we think can be immediate help, but we all know just because they're here and the name that comes with them, that doesn't really do anything for us. It's a matter of getting these guys to understand that team baseball is going to help us win. And the only way we can do that is if you can care more about that guy sitting next to you rather than you. And of course, it's an individualized sport within the team, meaning like you're going to have to take care of your business to make sure everybody can get to the level they want to be at. But I think that starts with day one. It started when we started here in August, is getting the guys to understand that and getting guys to buy in. And then, from an expectation standpoint, we can't control, the history has been as good as it gets. There's no question, and we're proud to be part of it. But our job is to be part of that history and keep stepping it up and getting ourselves to the level we want to be at.
And Coach, you mentioned buy-in and the importance of buy-in from players. How do you go about fostering that sense of kind of accountability and sacrifice for the betterment of the team?
That's a good question. I think, again, it's showing you care. I think there's the start of it. I think there's where buy-in gets to, showing you're willing to work, showing that the guys that, are getting extra work, that it's appreciated. They're doing their stuff on their own. The expectation of, if you just show up to practice and practice with the coaches, to win championships are really difficult. Like, you see the best guys in this sport, they don't ever stop working. And it's not with a coach. It's working on you. It's working individually with another teammate or a couple of people, whatever it might be, to push yourself when the coaches aren't around. I think once that starts to settle in with guys, I think we'll see a result we want to see.
In a lot of coaching, I mean, when you break it down, it's about the impact that you have on your athletes, your student athletes, your players in this respect on the baseball field. And for you, having so much experience, you talk about going into year 25. I mean, you've been coaching longer than all your players have even been alive. When you look at that and look at how your impact has impacted so many players in Division II baseball across now going into year 25, what would you say to some young coaches who hope to achieve a similar impact that you've had through 2.5 decades?
Well, as you say that, it tells me how old I am. That's part of it, for sure. I think, I would say for a young coach, it's not going to be easy, and you're not going to get rich overnight. You're not going to get rich if you stay in this sport. It's not what you do it for. You do it for every other reason. And of course, I've been fortunate to be able to make a living and never have a real job. But I've always treated it like that. It's never been something that I had to, on Sunday, I worried about going to work on Monday. I was waiting to go to work on Monday, and I enjoy every second of it. I enjoy being around the guys, our coaching staff, and the people here. But I have been really, really fortunate to only be part of 3 institutions coaching. And obviously this one's new and it's been nothing but great. But the other 2 places I was at, I love the places, and my goal is to get those guys to love the place the way I did and my family did. And I think once we do that, I think for a young guy, enjoy the place you're at. You're here, be where your feet are. You've heard all these other sayings is, get people to buy into what you love about the place. And then who knows where it goes? It could be the next job. It could be that job. It could, but you can't worry about your next job if you're worried about you can't worry about the job you're in if you're worried about the next 2 jobs. And the thing is, if you're not good at where you're at, you're probably not going to be involved in the next 2 jobs, at least the ones you want. So worry about working your butt off and getting around people. And the other thing is that the networking piece is huge. I just talked to a guy today that's looking for a recruiting coordinator here at the break because someone's going to get a professional job in pro ball, and they're looking for it. And the thing is those are the people you see people on the road that work their butt off and put their nose to the ground and they're getting after it. Those are the ones that you say, hey, I don't know about this guy much, but I see this guy everywhere. Okay, I don't know, I've seen the way his hitters go about his business or their pitchers, how they do their thing. Like, you'll have to dig, but that's somebody I would dig on. That's somebody to go look at. And I think when you put yourself in those conversations, I think you'll reap the benefit when it's all said and done. So many guys want to be, in the Power 4 today. Well, guess what? All those guys in the Power 4 want to stay there, and they've worked a long time to get there. So you've got to put the time in to do it, I guess, is my best thing to say to a young guy.
And Coach, to kind of like transition now into coaches and some of your coaches that you brought from St. Leo, 2 of your assistant coaches followed you from St. Leo. How has their kind of continuity helped with that transition, coming to Florida Southern?
It's been huge. I mean, Tony Caldwell and Mitch Wydetic had come, and then also one of our volunteers, Alex Frapart, had come with us as well. I mean, this job is, as we were talking earlier, is magnified, right? There's a lot of alumni support, a lot of responsibilities. There's a lot of other things that go on that you have in this position that maybe some other spots you don't. And the thing is we already know how each other work. We know strengths and weaknesses. They know what I do well. They know what I need help with. I know how they stand, how to approach it. It's that transition's huge. When you're going into something new and you have a new staff to learn, makes it really difficult. So one of the things that was huge for me before I took this job was making sure the staff I had was going to be in place with me. And I'm loyal to those guys, and they've been loyal to me. So, we're fortunate to help everybody, get themselves in a good spot here. But I'm not dumb enough to believe that I've done it myself. So I want to make sure if I can take care of those guys with me on the way. And of course, they make my life a lot easier when they're doing everything under the sun to get our program better. Then the transition becomes a little bit easier.
And you mentioned earlier too about the importance of family. And I know that a baseball team is family, but also off the field, you have your family. How do you balance that of prioritizing time with your family and your family life, but then also the never ending hours that a head coach has to endure, especially when you're trying to learn a new program?
Well, you better marry the right person. That is the first and foremost. I mean, my wife and I have been together since 1994, which way more than most people on this call or this video will even or stream will even know. But we met as freshman year of college. I was played pro ball for a little while, and then came back and got right into coaching. It's you have to have somebody that's independent. There's no question about it, and somebody that's involved. Like if she doesn't have something with her kids going on, she's at every game, and that will be the same here. And then same thing with my kids. Like we've grown up. Fortunately, we've grown up. My kids have grown up at the college level with their best friends being 18 to 22 years old. So they've been around this their whole life. Like my son came back from college over the week here, and we went to a Florida Southern basketball game. You know what I mean? Like our whole family did. That's a big thing for us. So they're involved in everything. Again, you can't love the place you're at if you're not around it. I think it's Fran Reedy, our AD at St. Leo, said a long time ago, or when I first got to St. Leo, is if you're not there, it doesn't show you care. So you've got to be around. So for us to come to a Florida Southern game, to be around, my family, to be around the family that we have here at Florida Southern is a big piece for us as a family. But to be honest with you, it is difficult. You do take away from your own kids and families sometimes to help other kids from other families, but it's worth it. I think sometimes you've got some negatives there, but the positives always outlast the negatives for sure.
And going back to those times, the 15th round in 1997, you were drafted by the Boston Red Sox, and you had a pro ball career. As a former pitcher and MLB draftee yourself, how did your playing experience help influence the way you mentor your players today?
I think the opportunity was unbelievable. I loved it. I was really fortunate at St. Joe to have a really good pitching guy. And then when I got in the pro ball, there were bits and pieces of the coaches that I dealt with that really brought a bunch of Dennis Rasmussen in the world and people like that, Ralph Truhl and a number of guys in professional baseball. They were great. They were great resources. It was still more of a meat and potatoes. There was we're going to feel this thing out. We're going to get the breaking ball to feel like this and that. Now it's changed drastically, without any question. So I think it's just a matter of, I was fortunate to be able to play in professional baseball, which I think helped without any question, because it's super difficult. That's what people don't understand. Everyone thinks you go to the minor leagues and, you're playing with the Red Sox, you're playing with this team. That's when the work really starts. So to take that experience and be able to show other guys, hey, it's not what you think it is. If you're just going to show up there, put the uniform on and play, you're going to have to work. And the level that they work at is at a different level to most people.
And speaking of getting to the next level, I know you've been able to have the opportunity to have a lot of your athletes go and get drafted and go play at the next level, and drawing on that experience as well. What stands out to you for some of the guys that are able to get that call on draft day? I know you had a pitcher go last year from St. Leo's, things of that sort. What stands out to you from some of the guys that can go from Division II to then playing in professional ball?
Well, I think, we get a different player. I think that's one thing is we've been fortunate we can get, just because I think part of it's we're in Florida. The coverage is so good down here from a professional scout piece, to see us, scouts to be two guys in a state of Florida is pretty well normal. Where if you're in the Midwest or you're somewhere else, and nothing negative to that, because obviously is where I come from, but they might have 5 states. Here the coverage is good. But to hear a guy's name and hear the excitement of opportunity to fulfill a lifelong dream, like that's why you coach. You know what I mean? Like that's such an awesome experience for their family, for themselves, and seeing guys. I haven't had one guy that played professional baseball that did not have a hiccup or did not have trouble. Every player goes through it. And to see a guy hear his name and be part of that is as cool as it gets.
And coach, going into kind of more your practice style, it seems like your practices are designed to be tougher than games. Can you elaborate on, how you prepare players for game day scenarios through this approach?
Well, it's funny because we got here and we put a different plan in. I mean, the same plan we've had where I've coached, but everything we do is fast. Everything's in short segments. If it's 5-10 minutes max, and it could be 5 things in a day, but everything is as quick as it gets and is high tempo and is really get them mentally sped up as fast as we can, because we really do want practice, to be more difficult than the game's going to be. And you can't really always, it's hard to put that into a baseball term, because in basketball, you just play faster. In football, you've got no huddles and all that type of stuff. In baseball, it's a little bit different. So when we're putting them in those situations, if it's bunt coverages, first and third, cuts and relays, picks, whatever we have going, we try to do them quick. One guy on, one guy off, one guy on, one guy off. And we want to do it as fast as we can get them going, that at the end, if they can't slow themselves down, they've got to get better at it, for one. And for another, once they're in the game seems to slow itself down. And that's what our goal is try to get them to be as quick as they can. And then, we're not the standard sit around and BP, shag the ball off the back of the fence, or, float. Like, to hear some coach getting after a player about not playing something live is pretty much a standard here. So that's one thing, is we want every rep to matter. We want every rep to be live, because in a game, you're going to see that, and you basically, those are free reps. Why wouldn't we take advantage of it?
When you look back at your career so far, what do you think is the most proud moment that you have as a baseball coach so far?
I'll be honest. I've been super fortunate to officiate a couple of my players and former players' weddings, and then even assistant coaches, and then also the number of times I've either been in a wedding of a former player, and then also every time we get invited to it. And that's one thing that we're super proud of, that my wife and I, we show up like we're the proud parents. That's something really cool, that they want us to be part of their day. And, when we can do that, I think, it's like we talked about. It's why you do it.
Absolutely, coach. And second to last question I'll have for you is, with that extensive coaching experience that you have, and this could be kind of like an idea process, how do you measure long-term success for a program beyond wins and losses?
Well, I think, like we talked about, and I still talk to guys that, I coached 25 years ago. That to me is something to be proud of and something that matters. And, I think the other thing is this: I want our players to come back with their families, long after I'm not coaching here, or wherever it might be, if that was at St. Leo or, where it was at, is I want them to come back and brag about the place they're at. And where they went to school, of the people they knew and the games they won, and, the degree that they have. Like, that's long-term success, right? That is, to me, what matters, is guys to walk out of here. And they might, I've got a number of grad transfer guys. Like, that might be a situation where, that guy might have been here for 1 year, but in a way that the transfer portal is going now, is I always say, you got to have a home. Like, where are you going to bring your family to in 20 years? And my goal is that 1 year was the place they consider home. And if we do that, then they enjoyed their time. We probably won some games. We got a degree, and it's something that they can be proud of.
Coach, my final thing for you, I know we've talked a lot about this opportunity that you have with Florida Southern. I just want to ask you, what is the thing that excites you most about this opportunity that you do have to put this program on the map once again at the top of Division II?
Well, I think just that. I think, with resourcing and what the opportunity we have to win a national championship, I mean, there's no question that everything that we've talked about is super, amazing and awesome, and we want our players to be the best people and so on. To go along with that, we want to win national championships, and I think this opportunity, since I've been coaching, this is the best opportunity to do that, and they've already done it here. And our goal is to get people on track and work our butt off. We can't promise anything, but we're going to do everything in our power to get back to that level.
And Coach, the final thing I have for you is, throughout your coaching career, who are some mentors or people that have impacted you to get to where you're at today?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, my athletic director at St. Joe, Bill Mossels, was a guy who, hired a 23-year-old kid right out of pro ball that knew everything and really knew nothing. I mean, a guy like him, he's still a friend to this day. Bill Courage, a guy from Webster University, was one of my assistants 25 years ago, and is arguably one of the best Division III and one of the best coaches in the country. A guy I talk to pretty well every day, if not every other day. Fran Reedy, my AD at St. Leo. We just, and then, my dad, right? Like, it's somebody that he's instilled hard work and discipline and so on in our whole family. And I would say, those are my mentors, and I know I'm missing some, but those are the people that are kind of, my rock for sure.
That's awesome, Coach. We really appreciate your time and talking to us and the rest of the Division II fans about your journey and your experiences so far. And we're looking forward to seeing your program on the field here this season. We're looking forward to it.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate everything you're doing for Division II baseball.
And that is head coach Rick Odette at Florida Southern.